Last episode, we went to Idaho, where we learned about fascism and a failed House bill which sought to ban gender-affirming care for transgender youth.
In today's episode, we head to Utah, where we learned about the state's high suicide rate and House Bill 11 that banned transgender youth from playing on sports teams that align with their gender identity.
My name is Jeffrey Wright. I'm a stay-at-home dad. I also do real estate on the side.
Bryce, and we do real estate together. We have a real estate brokerage where we help people buy and sell houses. When we started dating, or shortly thereafter, gay marriage became, legal. And for us, it wasn't even something we really thought about a lot, but we were not married at the time, and we had planned on having this grand wedding, with all our friends and family, and we knew we wanted to have kids, and we had kind of started the process of having kids. And the Utah State Legislature was in session again, or at the time, and they were trying to change the surrogacy laws so that gay couples couldn't have kids in Utah. And we met with a lawyer, and he basically said, hey, if this law is passed, you can't have kids in the state. And so we knew that if we got married really quickly and had our agreement signed by a judge, that would basically be grandfathered in if the law changed. So it was in the morning, we got engaged on a helicopter ride, and we went to the courthouse that afternoon, and some random judge married us, and it happened so fast that I remember only our moms and your sisters got to come, because it was we had 2 hours to put something together, and it was all because somebody was trying to change the laws to discriminate against us for being gay. And sometimes it makes me really angry that we didn't get to have this
Wedding.
Yeah, this wedding, because
celebration of love.
Somebody didn't think that we should be able to have kids because we were gay, and was trying to change the rules so that we couldn't. And we decided to kind of share our story. It started when we were having kids and going through the surrogacy process. We wanted to share our story so that it kind of younger generation could follow it and understand that it's possible to be gay and have kids. And this is one way to do it. I tried really hard to be a good Mormon and do everything you could. And I thought that if I were a good enough Mormon, that being gay would go away. And kind of the more I tried, the more I realized that it wasn't. And it was really damaging me as a person. And I remember I was in Hawaii, and I was on a hike, and I was really struggling with kind of accepting myself and coming out, and I was praying, and I just had this thought that that God would love me no matter what, and if I came out, it was the right thing for me, and that if I was still a good person, that everything would be okay. And that kind of gave me that feeling and that sense that, I can come out, and I'm going to lose kind of the church, but I could still keep a relationship with God.
I lived a very double personality, double life. With some people, I was very Mormon. With other people, I was not closet gay, but I was acting upon my desires and things that I wanted. And it took a toll on me. I was depressed, I was sad, I was suicidal. I attempted suicide twice after my mission. It was hard. It was just a very hard time. I was down at BYU, which is Brigham Young University, which is ran by the church. It's a private school. And I went there. I was gay. I came out to my family. I kind of lost my family during that time. We stopped talking for a couple of years because they just couldn't face the fact of not having a celestial family and being together forever. And it took a toll on me, and eventually got kicked out of BYU for being gay, and started over at Westminster, which is just another college here in Utah.
So Mormons believe that everyone existed before the earth, and that you come down to the earth and you're born and you get a body and you have a family. And if you're righteous and you're a member of the church and you do everything you're supposed to, your family can be together forever. And so if your family's not righteous and if you're not doing everything, then your family can't be together forever. And so being gay, goes against the church. It's a sin. And I think the church tries to dance around it a little bit and say like, oh, you can be gay and you can't act on it and that's okay. But they're really telling people they have to be alone for their entire life and they can't have a family, and they stress the importance of family and being together forever so much. But if you're gay, you can't have that. And it just creates this weight that, it's no wonder that Utah youth has the highest suicide rate, because it's just emotionally and mentally taxing. And so many kids reach this breaking point of, being gay and disappointing their family and God. And yeah, it's just hard.
I'm Utah State Senator Daniel Thatcher. I was first elected to a very blue district in Salt Lake in 2010, despite being a very conservative Republican. And so for me, I was never really an ally. I was never involved in LGBTQ spaces because it just wasn't my fight. It wasn't my issue. It wasn't my deal. And so I never had a problem with them. I didn't see why anybody else would either. And so it really wasn't on my radar until I started working in the suicide prevention space. The one thing that just hit me the hardest was, even though Utah's suicide rate is much higher than the national average, Utah's suicide rate for transgender individuals is just disproportionately devastating. I was just up for election, and after voting against the transgender sports ban, I thought I lost my seat. I thought I was going to lose. We have a very unique election system in Utah where delegates decide who goes on the ballot. And in most places in the state of Utah, whoever gets the Republican nomination wins. There are very few competitive seats in Utah, and mine used to be one of them. After redistricting, it is not. They basically took all of the swing areas out of my district, left me my own house, and then wrapped me down an unoccupied, uninhabited mountain range, because the districts have to be contiguous, and then dropped me right into the blood red heart of Utah County. I was not supposed to win that race. They thought that was going to get rid of me. I thought my answer was walk out on the floor and say goodbye, because you've done your part and it's time to walk away. There was a ruling, a Supreme Court ruling, where Neil Gorsuch, a affirmed liberal socialist activist hack, Neil Gorsuch, wrote in the majority opinion 6-3 from the Trump Supreme Court that sex includes gender identity, and that a violation of gender identity is a violation of Title VII. Now, I'm not an attorney, but I've read the Constitution a little bit, and my understanding is that things are not unconstitutional because we like them or don't like them. Things are unconstitutional when the Supreme Court of the United States of America say that they are unconstitutional. We also harm the trans community. I don't know that any amount of money is worth that. And maybe you don't understand them, and maybe you think they're weird, but I will tell you, the past 5 years as a suicide prevention advocate, I have come to absolutely love those people. And I can tell you that things like this hurt them. Having a bunch of people that don't even know them debate what their rights can and should be is actively harmful to them.
House Bill 11 was passed by the state legislature before being vetoed by Utah's Governor Spencer Cox. The House and Senate, however, ultimately overrode his veto on March 25th, 2022.
Yes, I am Samantha Taylor. I am the chairwoman of the Utah LGBTQ+ Chamber of Commerce. I'm also the firm administrator and a paralegal at Wharton Law, which is colloquially known around here as the gay law firm, because we do a lot of civil rights work that is LGBTQ+ focused. This is a bill that had gone back and forth for several years. There was a lot of community input, and we found something that we didn't like, but it was a decent compromise. And then at the very last minute, you know, the bell goes off at midnight, and at that point, everything that hasn't been voted on is dead. Around 8:30 p.m., they flipped back to the original bill, which was a complete ban. And, you know, there were some adjustments to it by like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and it had passed by about 10:30 in the evening. This type of legislation, whether it passes or not, gets kids killed. It stirs up hate. We've seen the number of murders of trans people worldwide increase significantly over the past few years. It causes huge mental health problems for the children because they feel unwanted. And as far as the sports bill, what I like to tell people is that, you know, I used to be able to overhead press about 110 pounds with one arm. And even though I still work out, like my arms get tired if I'm trying to braid my hair now. When you've been on estrogen or HRT for several years, you know, my lower body strength, as with most women, is still decent. You know, I can deadlift quite a bit. Not based on percentage of my body weight, totally in the normal range. I cannot lift anything over my head. One of the big issues with the panel is, you know, let's say my daughter's on a sports team and she loses. All I have to do is say that girl that beat my daughter is trans. And now that girl, who, you know, is probably 13, 14 years old, whether she is trans or not, whether there's any evidence she might be trans, can now be subjected to this medical panel that would be incredibly invasive, to have adults go over and measure parts of her body and even potentially genital exam, just because somebody thinks that she had an unfair advantage. And that's where the real danger is, you know, this is an attack on women. And, you know, we've seen anytime we introduce rules like this, it affects cisgender women as well. There's been several issues with Olympic athletes who are cisgender women. You know, chromosomal makeup is XX, but they have PCOS or some other disease condition that causes them to have elevated testosterone. And they're told that they cannot compete in the women's events, or they have to get their ovaries removed, or, you know, this becomes incredibly invasive for them as well. One of the things that bugs me more than anything is the legislature specifically set aside money to indemnify any school or athletic association that gets sued because of this. And they are being sued as we speak. And that, if you were to take that same amount of money and go to the schools and say, I want to give this $100,000, I forget the exact amount, to girls' athletic teams statewide, you would double or triple their budgets.
My name is Roberto Lopez. I am the board chair for a nonprofit organization in Utah called Project Rainbow Utah. And what we do is we stake flags around the state. We've actually crossed a couple borders now, and we do this to promote visibility and show to our queer youth and all of our queer community that they're not alone, and that this representation gives them the opportunity to know that they're not alone. We do get a lot of vandalism. So homes that are accepting and are proud to fly that flag will oftentimes come home to the flag burned or ripped or torn or gone. And what we do to respond to that is we stake up twice the amount of flags. Being queer and being a queer parent in Utah is definitely not easy in any capacity. Growing up undocumented, I went through a whole ordeal of hiding who I was because of a fear of being, you know, ostracized or judged or treated differently. Then having to come out as queer, it happened all over again. But luckily, even though it is extremely hard to be queer in Utah, there is a community here that supports you as if you were family already. And because of that, I've been able to be myself and be authentic. That has been doubling up almost every year. The community has been growing and growing. Not that it wasn't here before, it's always been here, but now it's more comfortable being present. And because of that, my kids are growing up in a society that they are more empowered to be and explore who they want to be without fear. When House Bill 11 passed, we had a lot of community partners put together a lot of protests. One of the things that we did as Project Rainbow is we created a rally that started at the Capitol steps, and we gathered our community with our flags flying proudly, and we marched down in protest to let them know that no matter what they do, no matter what bills pass, they're not going to erase us. They're not going to erase any of these transgender youth. They will be here, they have been here, and they're going to continue to be here because we are going to support them.
There was a rally at the state capitol, and we decided to take our kids, and I think we realized like our kids were probably too young to ever remember it, but we wanted them to know that, I mean, for us, like we're gay white men, which like, I mean, in terms of discrimination, we're probably discriminated the least on the LGBTQ community. And so we really wanted to try to, to stand with members of our community that needed our help.
My biggest fear when that bill came to be was the fear for our queer youth and their lives. I worked for another organization for a short period of time as a youth coordinator. We had sessions to talk about what they were struggling with, how to address trigger warnings and moments of inadequacy. These kids are resilient, they really are. But when a bill is passed that affects their identity and the ability to live authentically, it also puts them in a situation where they don't want to be here. The suicide rates that we encounter in Utah are extremely high. This bill affected that dramatically.
Nobody wants to die. We just don't want to hurt anymore. And so we look for a way forward. We look for a way to be whole, to be okay. And when people lose hope that it's going to be okay, that's when we lose them.
The real threat to girls and women's sports is we don't take them seriously, we don't fund them, we don't give them good coaches. When you get into the professional leagues or even college, we don't pay them as much. And so if we want to talk about equality and fairness in women's sports, that's what we should be attacking first. That causes so many more problems than the 2 trans girls in the state of Utah who are we're spending all this taxpayer money on just to gang up on 2 little kids.
This society that we live in today keeps on throwing us hurdles, keeps on throwing us barriers, and we're just going to keep breaking down through them. And the best way to do that is by showing up and being visible.
While putting together our episode on Utah, on August 19th, 2022, a Salt Lake City judge halted the ban on transgender girls playing on girls' sports teams. This was prompted by a lawsuit brought by the families of 3 transgender students.
Now that we've learned more about Utah's legislative and social landscape, it's time to follow the Society of Lucky Mothers to their tabling event at Sugar House Coffee as they make strides in their notes of pride.
We're here at Sugar House Coffee. You are the owner of this wonderful institution. Tell us a little bit about what it's like to own a place like this in Salt Lake City.
I think it's special. I think creating a space where everyone can feel safe to be themselves, you can't ask for a better space. And to have my staff not only be mostly queer, but also nourish that space to make sure everyone feels safe is important. And I think more cities need more places like Sugar House Coffee.
What is it like having a business like this specifically in Salt Lake City, in Utah, where there's a need for queer spaces, and making sure not only, are there spaces where people can come and gather and talk, and, we think of bars when we think of the queer community often, but what does it mean to have a coffee house and something that's more accessible for more people?
I think it's important because I have kids come in that at 14 years old, this is the only place that they feel comfortable presenting as who they really are. And to hear that is powerful. to not only because of the customer base, the community that I have, but also the team, to nourish that and to be able to make people feel safe and not have to, you know, pretend that they don't like boys or pretend like they're, you know, not comfortable in their own skin, I think is important.
Tell me a little bit about your lovely merchandise here. You have these beautiful pink bags of coffee over here with your rainbow stickers. And so you just showed us a Facebook post where somebody referred to a lot of this merchandise and posters and flyers and flags as propaganda. How do you respond to somebody who says something like that?
I encourage them to sit in that discomfort. I encourage them to sit and learn and listen. I don't think it's a straight white American. They know what discomfort is. And I think it's important to, it would be easy for me to react with anger and like retaliate and get defensive when responding to them. But instead, I want to respond to them with education. Like sit and listen to this rather than getting mad that we have all these pride flags all year long, not just in June. Learn from that. Like listen to any queer person, and you will see that love is love, and that's all it is. Our mission statement is that we provide the community with a public gathering space where everyone is safe to share their story. And I had customers help create that by telling me that they felt they appreciated that this was a space where they were comfortable and safe to share their story.
After a whirlwind 24 hours in Utah, it's time to keep the great American road trip moving.
We'll see you next time in Cheyenne, Wyoming.